Hi, welcome back to Fresh Faces New Ideas. My name is David. If you like what I do on the channel and you would like to support me, please like and subscribe, or you can follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas, or you can listen to me on the Center Left Radio podcast. So today we're going to go over the two bills that passed the House. They're the two gun control bills, which is HR8 and HR1446. So these two bills, they're the first step in some type of gun control legislation. Now, caveat to everything about any time I cover a bill, unless there is massive changes to the filibuster, it is most likely that none of this stuff will ever pass. That HR1 won't pass, HR5 won't pass, HR8 and 1446. So because of how the filibuster is designed, they would need to get 10 Republicans on their side for these bills. So that's the caveat. So while I'm covering this, I'm just explaining the type of legislation that is going to die unless there is some type of filibuster reform, which I have covered before. So what are these? These two bills are basically designed to close the gun sale loophole. Specifically, HR 1446 is designed to close what's called the Charleston loophole, which is how the guy, Dylan Roof, who shot up the Charleston Black Church in 2015, was able to obtain his firearm. And then HR 8 is an expansion of who can sell firearms and what checks are required for that. So HR 8 says that only licensed firearm importers, manufacturers, or dealers to trade or sell firearms, these are the only people so far who, if you're not one of those people, you have to go to one of them in order to trade or sell a firearm. And then the reason for this is it wants to make sure that the people are not just giving it to someone who is a criminal or might do criminal acts. Now, the currently, as federal law goes, is only licensed gun dealers have to do this. So what this bill does is it closes the gun show loophole in order to strengthen background checks and make sure that the people who don't have access to guns don't get them. And now the argument for this is, well, it's a good guy with a gun. He's not going to follow the bad guy with a gun anyway. He's not going to do this. However, under the Trump administration, they loosened restrictions so that people who are unfit to handle their own finances are now allowed to purchase a firearm. So this idea that it's just a mental illness thing is not true. So there are some caveats to this bill. If you're going to do a temporary trade or share firearms at a shooting range, totally can do that. Or if you're going to go on hunting trips, something like that. So you're still able, because that's the argument, it's either self-defense or, gun enthusiasts for hunting. So you can still do this for hunting, and it also has, when necessary, to prevent imminent death or greater bodily harm. So you can have you can gain a firearm if you need it to defend yourself for it's an extensive amount of time. Because it ultimately it says until the person's safety is procured. But if you're in a state, the example given against this was, well, what if it's a spousal abuse issue? Well, then you can legally have that firearm until you believe it's covered. And also, then you could then go with another person to get another firearm while you have this particular firearm under this provision. So it's not like you can't do it to protect yourself. Also, data shows that if you have a firearm, you're more likely to hurt yourself than you are to actually protect yourself in a robbery. There's data that shows it. So what HR 1446 does is it extends. So currently, if you go to purchase a firearm through one of these through an actual firearm dealer, you have to wait 3 days for the FBI to do a background check on you and make sure that you are, you don't have a felony, you're not a criminal, you're not somebody who shouldn't have access to this type of firearm. What HR 1446 does is it extends that period from 3 days to 10 days. And this is a good thing for a couple of reasons. One, the original legislation for the 3 days is if the FBI can't find something in 3 days to find you, you get the gun regardless. So if they found something on a fourth day, doesn't matter, you already have the firearm. So what the 10-day period does is you have to wait 10 days. If you don't hear back from the FBI in 10 days, you have to then reach out to them, and then they have another 10 days to ultimately fill the case. So what it does is it extends the amount of time you have to wait from 3 days to a maximum of 20. Now, keep in mind, if there's no background information on you that you're not going to have to find, this could be completed earlier. But it's just the 10 days is giving them enough time to actually look into your background and make sure that you are who you say you are, and then you should be able to have access to this firearm. So for all those people who are saying, if law enforcement has if law enforcement is doing their job and you just listen to them, you have nothing to hide. Why do you have to worry about it? So in this case, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. This is the argument that I've seen against this. So there's a couple of them. This one is this one was so stupid that I couldn't help but yell how dumb it was when I actually was faced with this. So the increase from 3 days to about 20 days is about a 700% increase. That's what the number was. And the argument goes, well, what if it doesn't do what it's intended to? What if they want to expand it by the same amount? Then it would go from 20 days to 140 days. Let's be clear. That argument is such a straw man because they're saying, okay, well, if this particular thing doesn't do it, they're just going to jack it up by the same price. Well, if they have 20 days to find out how long there's something wrong with the firearms, and then there or something wrong with the person by the firearms, and then they're finding that this isn't an efficient amount of time, they'll have a better bellwether to what the expansion is. So it might be 140 days. I can't imagine that with the resources the FBI has, it's going to take them 140 days to clear a person. Or if they're spending 140 days looking at you, what is going on in your background that you have to spend that much time being looked at by the FBI? So if this idea that, it's a slippery slope, they're going to bake it so you can never get a firearm because they're going to be checking your background eventually is such a stupid argument. It's 20 days at the maximum. And this is only if you can't be cleared in the first 10 days, you get a second 10 days. So that's what it is. It's not, it's automatically going to take you 20 days. And it's not a self-defense argument either because you can get these weapons in self-defense. The other argument is, it's going to create a soft registry because now they have, now the FBI is going to be able to check every single gun. This is under HR8 because they have to, the firearms have to be sold at these specific stores. There'll be a register of who owns what gun. Well, yeah, but the argument still applies anyway. So your argument is just they have a soft registry, and then the argument from that was, well, what if they abuse it? Well, why would they abuse? Because look, as it stands now, somewhere between 70 and 97% of Americans support expansion of background checks or a universal background check. That's an incredibly high number. So if there is a bill that passes under a bill like that covers that type of information, should be a no-brainer because that is the highest bar. 97% approval rating. Then nothing has 97% approval rating. I don't know if you could find puppies having a 97% approval rating among American people, but this has a 97% approval rating. So yes, if your argument is, it's a soft registry, and what about abuse in the future? Well, then you have to worry about then that's why you have oversight on these agencies, and that's why you have oversight on these bills. If your issue is, they might abuse it later in the future, then you ask your congressperson to push a bill to put some oversight limits on it. You can't say, what about abuse in the future, and then say, so therefore we shouldn't try to take incremental steps. Because let's be clear, the mass shootings, the answer is not more guns, because that's been the answer since Columbine, and that hasn't changed anything at all. It's gotten worse. And the answer is not video games. There's studies that prove that violent video games have zero effect on violent behavior. It just does. So these are the first steps. We don't know what will work and what won't work. And if we find out that maybe this particular piece is not effective after we have some time to study it or after it goes into effect, but then we can try something different. But this appears to be a time-tested, studied way to protect people. And that's what the point of this legislation is. Also, any argument again, they're coming for your guns. Nobody is taking your guns in this situation. Yes, Beto made an incredibly, incredibly stupid argument for removing AR-15s. But even in countries that have mandatory buybacks, it's not super effective either. But this is not what that is. It's basically saying we want to make sure that the people who are getting these guns have to be checked to make sure they should have access to those guns. Because as it stands now, the argument we're going to take Tom Cotton because he's the one who made this argument. Tom Cotton said on the COVID relief bill, Dylan Ruth is going to get a $1,400 stimulus check. That's true. He will. However, Dylan Ruth already got $1,600 under or $1,800 under Donald Trump. So Tom Cotton is for giving Dylan Ruth $1,800 and a future Dylan Ruth the ability to continue to create a massacre like this. That's what these type of legislation is designed to stop. It's designed to stop things like the Dylan Ruth massacre in Charleston. That's why it's specific for this. It's the same way what they tried to do gun legislation in after Parkland, or when they tried to do bump stop legislation after Vegas. When things happen, you look at the situation and you decide, okay, what is the best way we can do this? But the answer can't just be nothing, because we've seen what nothing has done. We've seen Americans are now more divided and more armed than ever before, as there was plenty of studies showing how many people were people were spending their original stimulus checks on firearms. The sales of firearms were increasing drastically under the Donald Trump presidency. Nobody is saying you can't own a firearm. The goal is to protect the people who don't want to have a firearm and don't want their kids to get shot. Okay? All right. So if you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Facebook at Faces Ideas, or you can listen to me on the Center Left Podcast, or Center Left Radio. I will see you next time. Have a good day.